Hi, everyone. It's Carolyn Moore from the Modern Widows Club, and this is a special series called The Fatherless Boys and Men. And what we're doing is we're asking young men who have been raised by widowed moms at Modern Widows Club and getting their perspective on what it was like to grow up without their father and where their life has taken them today, but more importantly, how widows who have been served and empowered in Modern Widows Club, how's that's rippled out into their life. So welcome, Nate Williams.
Hi.
Hi, Nate. And now you live in St. Louis,
Mm-hmm.
Missouri, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we're actually both in St. Louis right now, but we're doing this by Zoom. Because I'm on my 10-city tour and St. Louis is the fifth stop. So I'm so glad you could be on the call. Now I'm going to give everyone a little bit of information on you, Nate. Nate's 24 years old. His dad, Joe, died 8 years ago in 2013 as a result of an unknown heart condition. He passed in his sleep while his mom, Cyndi, who is our St. Louis community advocate, was out of town. And while everyone experiences the loss of a parent sooner or later, this is coming from you, we felt alone in the fact that he died so suddenly and without any warning. Once my mom found the community of Modern Widows Club, it became more clear that we weren't the only ones who had experienced a loss like that, and it didn't make any of us in our hurt any less, but it made us feel less lonely. So you wrote that, Nate, and I really appreciate you being so honest about your story. And why don't you tell us a little bit of story about, what was you were 16 years old, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you give us a little bit of what you remember back when all of that was happening and how that impacted you as really a young adult man?
Yeah. So I'm the oldest of, there's me and my brother's the middle child, and my sister is the youngest. And both my mom and my dad both worked full time. And then for a little bit there, they were in school full time at the same time. And so I had plenty of experience as, like, a babysitter and older brother in one. But when my dad passed, it really those skills were sort of put to the test. And for the next few years, because my mom was still in school and still working, and so for a little bit there, it was like, my role became that role of babysitter and older brother sort of was amplified. And that was a huge change at 16. And it was it's hard, to say the least, because my dad and my mom both had such a, they raised us well. And I mean, not that I was like, it's hard to even put into words the impact that, losing one half of the team was.
So all of your roles changed. She
Yeah.
became the breadwinner. She also became the solo parent, which we always make a point of. People often call us single parents, and I'm like, no, let's call it what it is. It's solo parenting. There is one person that's taking on the responsibility now of both. And then, being at 16, I would guess that you probably heard things like, you're the man of the house now. That male, you're just coming into your own independence as a young adult, but now you're responsible for a household. Did you feel some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I was lucky to have been, you know, the oldest, and I had been in charge for, a couple hours here, a couple hours there before, because I had experience as, temporarily in charge, and that was just put to the test, when when my dad had passed. And it really is just everyone's role changing forever. You know, there never is really a new normal when the old normal is so like it was all you knew, and it is sort of like you don't forget that. So it was all of us just trying to figure out. Yeah, it's the most interesting phenomenon because it's not. It wasn't a new normal when those roles changed. It was never normal to us. It was just the reality.
And the survival of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, just emotionally and practically, that every day things continue on. And so, so you really had to sort of step up and become, I don't want to say like parent-like, but in a way you did, if you were babysitting and really kind of being in charge while your mom was away. And then you're also working through your own pain and the loss of this dad that you were so close to. I can, my parents went through a divorce, so I remember, just not wanting to take on that responsibility. And yet you have to because you're family, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that whole concept of, I talked to another tenor, actually, the second interview that I did, and literally at 12 years old, they were saying, you're the man of the house. And I was like, what does that even mean? You're not fully a man yet. And so you're asking young men to grow up way too quickly. And that's really what widowhood does. It, and losing your father, it forces you to grow up very quickly. I'm guessing that probably some of the things that you learn through that process, maybe in the future will help you actually even be a unique kind of father growing up yourself someday. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah,
had thoughts of that.
definitely. Because it's just like, I think back and I cherish the memories of my dad and time spent with my dad. And we were lucky to have been such a close family and spend so much time together, not just out and about, but just at home. Like I really think very fondly of those times at home. And I wish that I could go back and maybe not go hang out with friends for 2 3 nights in a row. Like maybe I wish I could go back and just spend more time at home. But it's that makes me then think forward to being a parent in the future, and how much I'm just going to cherish that time with a newfound appreciation.
I think you're right. And actually the resilient science that I have investigated actually proves that when we come alongside and you get the support that you need when something so life altering happens, that later on your resilience is higher, but also your perspective and your awareness is more heightened. And I think that's what you're saying there.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So your mom found a Modern Widows Club, and I'm just sort of a little bit curious because you were a little bit more mature. You maybe saw what happened when she before Modern Widows Club, and then afterwards finding a community that she could really feel like she belonged and trust and understood her. Do you remember that kind of transition happening for her?
Definitely, because it's when you lose a parent, like you think, my parents are going to live till they're 100. Um, and I'm sure that she was thinking the same thing about my dad is, her husband was going to live to be, they were going to be 100 and they were going to live and until they were old together. And so, and a lot of the times that does happen. Like a parent, you lose your parent when they're, in their 80s, 90s, and that was reflected in a lot of the fellow widows that she was encountering, through church or social circles or whatever. Like, and I know that was a struggle, trying to find people of all different ages and all different types and all different backgrounds to relate to, instead of just that stereotypical sort of elderly woman who had lost her elderly husband type stuff. Not to discredit that, not to say that that's not just as hard, but I know that that was a big part of that, and I know that there was a lot of relief finding the Modern Widows Club and being able to connect with all different kinds of widows and sort of explore what the definition of a widow really is and sort of defying that stereotype.
Right, it kind of opens your eyes that there's the myth,
Mhm,
is only grandmothers become widowed or maybe military.
mhm.
But the reality is, every day in this country, 2,800 married women become widowed, and they are of all ages because the average age is 59. When I founded the organization, I didn't know those stats, right? I learned those over time. But like your mom, I was looking for someone who was like me, near my age, raising a family, being involved in the community. And so when your mom started getting involved in Modern Widows Club, what were some of the kind of things you started noticing were different about her grief? Um, was there a shift there for her?
I would say so. And it ties back to what I had said earlier, where it was just not that it was, the grief doesn't go away, but it can be sort of recontextualized and reassessed through a new lens that doesn't make it less painful or less
Mhm.
hard to go through, but just less lonely. And I definitely noticed that it was like there was a shift in her grief in that way, where it was just like, well, I'm not, the grief isn't going away, but it's less alone. It's less lonesome.
Yeah, there's so many studies that have been done that loneliness itself actually is the perpetual component that actually causes diseases to get worse, right? Because you need those other, and your mom was there for you, but like with you, like you personally, like who did you reach out to be that Modern Widows Club like community to do grief? Did you have an equivalent of anything like that?
Well, I definitely was able to turn to people who knew him. That's where I felt the least lonely, whether that was family or whether that was um, my girlfriend at the time, now my fiance, who knew him and was around and was, equally devastated, and friends who knew him. Um, that was the place that felt the least lonely, for
Oh,
sure.
well, that's a great segue into me talking to you about Kayla, because evidently your dad knew that someday that you were going to marry Kayla.
That's what I hear.
So evidently your dad said, to your mom, someday he's going to marry her. Like he intuitively knew, even though he physically isn't here to actually attend. And you're getting married in December, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So the comfort of having actually someone at your age at 24 who actually knew your dad, who you obviously know your dad would approve of him. What would you think your dad would be thinking about right now, if he was able to come and be present at your wedding? I mean, how proud do you think he'd be of you?
Extremely, and at the same time, just happy to be able to probably jokingly say, "I told you so."
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm just going to like go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say there's going to be a way that he's going to get that through to you on your wedding. So I'd be a little bit nervous about what's going to happen at your wedding, Is that pretty much those kinds of messages break through? They have a way of coming to you. So it's going to be very interesting to find out what that is for you. So I love that. And I just want to, is there anything else you want to share? Like, what would you want people to know, coming from your perspective and where you've grown in the last 8 years of why Modern Widows Club matters to not just women like your mom, but as a family, right?
It's just that sense of community and belonging is so important, no matter where you can get that, but especially with shared trauma, that community and that found family is so important. You can't say it enough how important that is to your mental and even your physical health, just to have a sense of belonging in something that can feel so alone.
Yeah. Well, I think your mom did a really great job, and I'm going to ask her. She's actually here and with me, and I'm going to have her come over here and just poke her head in to say hello for our video because I'm so proud of her. Here's your mom. Hello, Cyndi.
Hi.
So this is Cyndi Williams, our St. Louis community advocate, and we're here together. And she recommended you, Nate, and I'm so glad that you were actually able to share with us because I think your voice is really important for people to understand really the ripple effects that Modern Widows Club really has, because when you support and empower widows, that translates to young men like you.
Definitely.
So thank you. Well, congratulations on your upcoming wedding. I'm sure I will see lots of photos of that. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, Nate.
Bye.